welcome to Peace Pat Paints. I'm Pat. I make various artsy things. Uh, we started off with just painting miniatures, but it's definitely grown into other things. We've made like Catmobiles and pastels and drawing and like we do all sorts of things now. It's a lot of fun. Whenever I feel like I can do it, or I'm not really busy with work or other things. I'm like mildly employed. Um, it's an interesting life. Life's crazy, guys. I made it through a lot of stuff though. I got to see a lot of cool things. I did a lot of really neat stuff in my time. I cleaned up the beard. I got to lose a little bit more weight, but I lost enough where I felt like I'd take that off, and I'd only have like the one double chin. I guess I don't really. I guess I just have like the gobbler so far. I don't actually have like the double chin yet. It's getting there though. So I gotta start trying to get a little bit more exercise in, which hopefully I'm talking too much. Hopefully this feeling better continues. I had a little bit of a weave out. I stayed up a little too late the other night making cake, which is weird. Yeah. My allergies are kicking my butt. So I might be coughing a little too much. But we're going to try to do a little bit of drawing. We're going to see how it goes. Anyway. Enough watching me cough. This is what I was afraid of. I was kind of coughing all morning. And then it kind of started calming down. I was like, all right, cool. And then, of course, now that I'm like talking, I'm coughing like crazy. Okay, so that's way intense. We need to. This isn't like the best ring light in the world, but it does all right. There we go. That works out okay, right? That's not too bad. So anyway, I finished this one up. This was a lot of fun. So we got it finished, which is great. Hey, Jared, good to see you. So I finished this panel. That's old Chops talking to the crew about the engine and how smooth he's got it running or whatever. And you know, you can see the captain's shoulder coming in. Here comes Captain. And there's the captain saying, "Hey, you better put your money be ready to put your money where your mouth is. You never know what's gonna happen." You know, or whatever we're gonna have him say. And then we're gonna have the pirate sub, the bad guy sub, whatever, however you want to define this for yourself. I don't. All right, pirates is kind of how I envisioned them. But they're gonna have a little bit of a different look to their submarine. So we're gonna kind of start working on that today. So I did a little bit of blocking. It is a 1 point horizon. So you can see the horizon here, and then the point, you know, the horizon line is right there, and then just to kind of start framing in the perspective for our submarine and kind of got it started. It's really important. It's hard to stress like how important this is, but it is important to set up your perspective on any piece you're doing. I guess when, you know, we're kind of running the perspective that way, it's kind of just a front perspective. There's not a lot we had to do there, you know what I mean? But I did run everything pretty parallel, try to kind of keep it in. I did let it get a little off because, you know, comic, you don't want it to be a little off, and it doesn't have to look perfect. We don't want it to look like, you know, the Sistine Chapel or anything, but we do want it to have a certain look. And it might actually be that which is making that glare. It is. It's making a lot of L's. The graphite does not like that light. Alright, let's bring this up. There we go. Hey, that's not bad. Alright. I can see, and it looks good on camera. That's what we want. Um, this is a 2B. Now remember, with your pencils, H is the hard, and then the B's are gonna be like, oh, I can't remember what they use the term for, but it's the bold. The higher the B, the more bold the color. Is how I always or marking, I should always say, because that does seem to be kind of how it goes. I remember that one's gonna come. See, that railing would actually come around. Boom, right? So we got to make sure we bring that railing through. And normally you could want to sketch with the. You're way more artistic than I am. Love watching you create ideas. Hey, I appreciate it, my friend. I have so many things that I have ideas for, and I never seem to have enough time to do them all. So I'm kind of you know me well. Jared knows me well. He's a former student of mine when he was when we were chefs. Back when we were all chefs. Remember all those days, guys? So anyway, there's several former students and former colleagues to watch. Anyway, getting taken out of the industry kind of really gave me a chance to work on something else, and I'm kind of trying to capture that for myself and hold it. Just as I don't even know how to explain the feeling of it, but having other outlets and having other things to create really makes me feel like it's not over. You know, God, how do you explain this without sounding morose? I don't want to sound morose. Ew. Okay. Horizon reestablished. And that's another thing. You can always start off something for start drawing something and then bring the lines back. We're actually bringing lines back in here is what we're doing. But you can start a drawing and then start adding your points in if you have to start adjusting perspective. It is possible to do that. I had just erased them. So, you know, like I was saying, I could have let it all really bring me down. I could have decided that, you know, my life was over, or I could just pursue some of my other passions. And so, in a way, in a very real way, I get to pursue something else. I get to pursue I don't know. It's difficult to describe the feeling of it. I'm sure a lot of people understand what I'm trying to say. So the reason I'm going with this is a 2B here instead of a hard is that I kind of want to be able to erase some of these lines. I'm not exactly sure how I want this to look, and we're still kind of changing up some of the submarines and their look. Still trying to get things set up the way we want them to be. things about drawing perspectives like this is at first it can kind of look like it's wrong. And then once you start adding in all the other shading parts, you start taking out the things that don't need to be there, and so on and so forth. You really start to get to where you can see what you're doing. All right. Kind of, sorta. I think I want to bring this just a little further down. Maybe adjust this too. That's a little too far up there. So can I maybe bring it a little further back? Still following the same lines, right? Gotta stay online. Make sure we're staying good. Maybe too long. All right, more like that. There we go. Gonna have you playing in my ear while I'm making this video. We're making toffee studded snickerdoodles. Sorry, that's fun. Toffee studded snickerdoodle. That sounds tasty. Okay, so this should actually be a little bit of a subplane. It should actually kind of come out a little bit. Let me think about that for a second. Definitely gonna stay there. I actually need to think about lighting and so let's see. We'll take our reference photo or idea photo. Take a look at it and see what we think. If I can get to it through all the means. Let's mark out that little light bits coming through. And we want to have, bubble columns. Those are just notes to show our light source there. Just little edges to kind of show off where we want our bubble columns to go. Maybe some, let's see. So we're trying to kind of do a reef here, so we'll do a little bit of work on bringing in some of our shelves here. Yeah, reef shelves. You're gonna have ledges, right? rocks and stuff like that are always very interesting to me. Because, like, stuff like this, it has a shape, yeah? But you're not really drawing this shape the way you think you are. It's more like you're drawing this shape through shading. I don't really know how else to say that. If you're using colors, it's so much easier. Rocks and shell and like a reef shelf like this, that sort of thing is way easier when you're doing it with colors, because it's more like something like this is color theory more than it is anything else. I mean, it's shading and such like that as well. That's true, but it's almost more theory than it is actual like work. So like this, we gotta have this kind of keep coming down where these rocks are just kind of stacked on top of each other and such. And it's not even really rocks, it's like pitted rock. You know, we're trying to make a texture where the rock itself is kind of just pitted. Because that's what a reef looks like, right? So you kind of have to just kind of work your way down the bit as you... Hey, it's Sir McBeardsly. Good to see you, friend. So you just kind of work in the light and the dark spots and stuff like that. You know, we want to do that, but we also need to make sure that we're giving texture to everything, because like it's not just shadow under here. You know, this darker part here, this line, of course this is going to be way darker because it's the top of, like, you know, our little rock shelf. But there's also like little, because of the way coral and stuff grows, it's going to have a texture to it. Now when you're doing this in color, so if we go back and we go through the whole process of making a comic, right? And we're going to draw all these sketches, and then we'll light box, and we'll overline, we'll ink all these things in, and we'll color all this stuff. You know, we don't have to have all this shadows and shades, all this stuff changes because of what we're going to do. Because you're going from black and white, you're going from monochrome to color. So when you go to like full color versus something that's monochrome, the way you paint things and the way you show things off or color things, not necessarily painting, could be inking, could be colored pencils, doesn't matter. None of that matters. The using the theory of the color instead of just your monochrome, you have more options because of the way you can change the overall look of something. Drawing in monochrome can sometimes be much more difficult than drawing in color, and vice versa. Color to me just seems more intimidating to a lot of people. When I've interacted with people about it and kind of gotten to where they're afraid of doing things, a lot of times it comes down to, like, you know, they're intimidated by one or the other. They're either scared of the idea of using just monochrome, or they're scared of using color. You know, that doesn't count for like professional artists. Those of us have been doing it for a while. We don't have those kind of qualms. We just kind of go, which is kind of what I do. I just kind of go with the flow, you know. Now, okay, obviously here, and then right here, because we're going to bring this shelf in. Let's bring this shelf down here a little bit. Now, if we set a darker shade here, maybe right here, especially to kind of juxtapose where that light is going. I'm going to start creating that. But look at the next little bit of the shelf. Because again, that's just guidelines, right? Those aren't permanent lines. Those are just kind of telling us where we're going to go. If we want, we could start. Maybe we want to put some fish in here. Put some fish in here. You don't have to be. You don't have to be fancy just yet. Let's just put some outlines. Just a little outline, maybe just a little school of fish. And we're gonna put them in here so we know what we're doing. Here, maybe put this guy a little bit of a different angle. Maybe we got a fish that's coming more towards us, right? You know, we kind of angle those fish around. Maybe this one's curving. Maybe we don't really see his tail fin because he's got a little curving to him, you know. He's swimming this way. You can see a little bit more of his gill that way. Yeah, and you'd also bring some fish maybe out here into the water too. Probably right here and here. And again, we're really gonna refine these later. We just want to block them out. We want to make a little idea. Hey, this is what we're doing. What we're doing. Well, let's see. Oh, let's see. I missed some chats. McBeardsly, you may be interested to know I've started picking up some D&D tile files from Dragon Lock on sale. Hey, that's cool. Gonna be printing tons and tons of walls, floor tiles, dungeon decor, and all that. Hey, cool, man. That's a lot of fun. Really getting into that printer. It's easy to get the bug. The 3D printing is a lot of fun, y'all. For those of you who haven't gotten into it just yet, it is fun. There's a learning curve. I want to make sure I warn everybody about that. There is definitely a learning curve when it comes to 3D printing. But, you know. Oh, speaking of which, I think I left this thing in the other room. I'll be right back. Hold on. 25 minutes. Hey, I did pretty good here. Let's see. We need to turn off Steve. Nope. Turn off that one. There. I'll be right back. Woo! So anyway, whenever we get finally back out of freezing temperatures, we'll have these to play with. Boom. 184 D&D dice delivered. Jesus Christ. Set of pieces for D&D. Yeah, there you go. Well, if you want resin prints, let me know. I got tons of files. I can print them for you on the resin printer. Woo! Speaking of resin printer, oh, that sucks. That sucks. That sucked bad. Fuck. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, that's bad. That's not good at all. Two faces leaking like crazy. Sometimes they do that. So that comes from. Well, hopefully it doesn't damage the paper. Feels okay. Ugh. Oh, no, no. Couldn't beat the deal. $10 for same day delivery. That's crazy. Anyway, so before Two-Face peed all over my picture here, good lord, that's aggravating. I've got these prints of the. I've got all the road. I've got no, but I've got some Batman Rogues Gallery stuff. I have Batman himself. Yeah, definitely get one. They're fun. 3D printers are cool as fuck. Anyway, man, that sucks. So Deadpool, his sword didn't print right, so I think I might just sculpt that sword up. The Batman looks great. Good Batman. Harlequin. Catwoman. Printed his shoulder funky. I can't figure out. It looks like it broke, but I've been looking all over the place. I can't find the piece where it broke off of, so I don't know. And then, you know, Two-Face, he looks great. Unfortunately, he just peed all over my thing. This Two-Face looks great. Anyway, this next show we're going to in March. Yeah, minifigs you definitely want to 3D print. Oh yeah. It works. It works really good on tiles and things like that. It works fine for that terrain and such. But yeah, once you get into like fine details, it doesn't. Because like, okay, so like a filament printer is not gonna print this at this size. I'll look for some Green Arrow. I'll look that up. I'm sure that they're out there. I just haven't gotten that far yet. Anyway, the idea here is like this is for, and this is actually this guy did great too. This is a great company, great artist. He made these all separate so you can get in there and paint all that before you set those on and paint them. So really great, and like the heads come off separately and such. So great print, great pieces, great details. But yeah. My idea is the shows we've been going to in the city. They've been more like comic book, He-Man, Skeletor, Saturday morning cartoon, nostalgia stuff. So it's a little different than the typical D&D crowd. Now that being said, it gives us an opportunity to kind of tailor what we're making to fit more of what the people want, you know. Now we gotta hide. Now we gotta play hide the stain. Maybe we gotta change these fish up just a little bit. Good thing that was just in the sketching phase, huh? Yeah, rocks and stuff are pretty easy. Once you kind of understand that it's more you're blocking in the shadows and letting the light in to places and stuff. And you just kind of think about where your light source is and kind of play with those ideas and how light is going to hit things and how light is going to be obscured from others and stuff like that. Like what obviously down here we're going to have a whole lot more going on. We really want this bit of this reef to kind of maybe finish up. So this will allow us to kind of have the two different, we're getting to where we've got some different stuff going on. Move that to feel like it's behind the submarine, or behind this. Okay. Alright, so we'll establish the reef. Let's see if we can't bring that through there so that you can't tell that that stains in. That probably is going to be there forever. I don't know that I'll ever not see that. It looks better. It looks better in person, but man, I don't know that I'll ever unsee it. That really makes me angry. But you know, I handle my anger a lot better than I used to, so that's good. Why do you let my fucking goddamn pencil sharpener? But yeah, I feel like doing Bust the Superheroes may actually do well for us. Get those curves to look right. maybe we change the light source. There we go. While we have time, we'll change the light source to be this way, so we can heavily shadow some of this stuff. So it's coming more straight down, like. Everything under here is going to be pretty dark shadow. As it gets up there. Awesome. Use their patchwork to help with the shape of the hull, which is kind of fun. That's one of the nice things about doing something like that, little patchwork like that, is that you do get a chance to really kind of use it as your, the hull of the ship. Obey certain rules. It feels like I threw that in and didn't ever really set it to the angle of everything else properly. So we put that in now. See how it just kind of starts to look like something as we draw. The more we draw of it, the more we can start kind of determining what's what. Studs in there. Rivets. And I love, that's one of the things I really like about this. And things kind of whimsically and comical, is that you really do kind of get that chance to be a little bit more whimsical and a little bit more and less realistic. And we're going to practice some more, the realistic things while we're here. Like the captain, he looks, that piece right there looks great. Super realistic, kind of, he looks like a person. But in the end, damn comics about freaking cats, so you know, kind of get to play around a little bit. Which that leads me to the. I think we definitely settled on the combat action training serial cats is what I'm gonna call it. It's not really an option. I think I'm just gonna just make those decisions now. I don't really. I used to think what people cared about what I was gonna name things or do with things, but now I've decided I don't care anymore about that. I'm just gonna do what I do and name what I name it. People can like that or not. So, question: when you're priming to paint 3D prints, and I plan on doing a bunch at once, what's a good way to do a lot at once? Would can primer be good? Should consider an airbrush. Oh no, man, just rattle can that shit. Don't waste your time with airbrush primers. You'll make stuff. You got to go do it outside anyway. You do because you're doing so much. You're doing so much, and if once you get an airbrush, you really need like a ventilation setup. There's a lot to airbrushing. Let's see, 44. Yeah, my hands are cramping anyway. Okay, so we're gonna pull down. We'll talk about that because we got to talk about priming this other stuff anyway. Yeah. No, for sure. So like, whenever you prime something, because I'm gonna prime these pieces here, I don't necessarily have to. They're in pretty good shape. They could probably take paint, right away, and it would most likely be fine. But I want to put a primer down on them. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is figure out whether or not I need to prime it all together in one piece, or do I want to prime it separately and then put it together later. If I want to do that, there's a couple things I might want to think about. So like the pins. Maybe we do need the other camera. Okay, let's take a look at this. Maybe let's close the sketchbook though, so before we have any real problems. It's just paintbrush. It's just paintbrush. It's fine. So like, you got pins and stuff here. This is a good one because he comes way apart, right? So with something like this guy, we want to prime him, right? These holes aren't really going to make any difference. Neither is that one. So we don't really need to mask them because it'll be all right. Even if we're just going to throw some super glue. We could always clean them out later if we need to. If you are worried about a hole, though, like maybe you're worried about contact in a hole or something, you could always put like silly putty in these to keep them from getting paint in it, right? So once you've done, and then you could tape or silly putty around your tabs. You can slot tab, right? So what you could do, all these things need to sit out in the open air. So what you could do is you could tape those off or whatever. Okay. Yeah, so I always prime in black just because that's just what I was always taught. You can prime in any color you want. If you're gonna paint it brown, it almost makes more sense just prime it brown and go from there. But like I said, you might want to if you're not looking to separate it, you're gonna prime it all together, which is also fine. Then glue it all together and prime it first. That way your primer didn't interfere with any of your glue, so on and so forth. And then leave that guy open. Anyway, now as far as like priming a lot of it at once, definitely outside, definitely rattle can it, especially for something like terrain. You gotta always think about what am I painting? What's the purpose of this? What am I trying to do? What's the amount of time I really want to spend on this? And then go from there, like, right? So, like, are you painting a bunch of furniture? Do you just need it to be brown and you don't really care if you just can maybe pick out a few details and you don't really care? Spray paint that shit brown and go. Don't worry about it. But if it's a figurine, then you might have a different thing. You might want to go white. You might want to go black. You might want to go gray. Um, I've seen some things get start off with gold. A lot of people like to do that. So okay, that's a good question. Gray or black? I like black because I like to zenithal highlight it. So that's why I paint things black. Is because I like to be able to. Because even if I'm in a hurry, I can just zenithal highlight it and then throw a quick thin color to wash over everything and be done, and it's over. And I've gotten it painted. But if I'm going to be doing, like I said, a large batch of stuff, and I'm not necessarily going to do anything but throw like maybe a black wash on top of it after I get done, then I'm just going to paint. I'm just going to use the primer, whatever is the primary color I want it to be. So say I'm doing like the example of furniture is a really easy one. So we're doing like maybe a whole bunch of wooden floor tiles or wooden floor tiles plus furniture. It's all wooden, right? So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and buy a brown spray paint, whichever color brown I want all my wood to look like, and I'm going to spray paint that sucker brown. And then I'm going to use like a dark wash, like a black wash, something like that. I'm just going to run it over the top of it, and I'm going to go because it's scenery. It's not as big a deal as people's characters. People want their characters to look more flamboyant and stuff like that. So, so there's your differences. And like I said, there's a bunch of different ways you can go with it. A lot of people like gray. Some people like white. If it's going to be something that's big glowing, I like to use white. Just because it's easier. Or if it's going to be white all over in general, like if you're going to paint a bunch of stormtroopers, it's easier just to prime them all white and then come back and paint the black details in. It's just easier. So you gotta think about what your end goal is. Like, what am I planning on doing with this? Versus doing it a certain way because that's the way you've seen it done on YouTube or TV or whatever. And it says, if it was something a bunch of castle stuff, I'm gonna spray paint. Probably spray paint that gray, just to make my life super easy. Like with these, I did I did some risers for the shows, and it's I wanted to look kind of like castle or whatever, and I textured it with sponging white and gray and black on it. But the primer color is gray. I primed it gray because it's castle, so the stone color. So we want gray stone color, and then we're gonna add texture on top of it. Versus if we had spray painted it black, then it would have had a different castle look. It probably would have looked like a darker stone. So, and if I put a white underneath it, by the time I sponged it on there, it would have looked whiter. Would have looked more. I could have made it look more like a quartz or a granite. So lots of different variations and bits in there to kind of decide which works best for whatever you feel like it needs to be. Stone right now, yeah, and then some tavern eventually. So and even if you're doing something that's like maybe a mix of stuff, it's easier to paint a darker color on top of a lighter color than it is to paint lighter colors on top of darker colors most of the time. But like if I'm doing like a bunch of tavern stuff, I almost want to paint it all, even if it's a mix of stone and wood. I almost would want to paint it all brown and then come back with and pick the stone out because the darker brown is going to be fine with the lighter stone coming up. And because you're trying to create a three-dimensional object, you're trying to create shadows. So you want to actually start off with the darker and come up. Especially if you're going to be doing something fast, like walls, so yeah, you're going to just dry brush that on there. It makes life super fucking easy. But if you want to get super detailed, then you want to go the other direction. So I don't know. It really depends on what you're trying to do. And my advice is my advice, and everybody's welcome to not agree with me and do things the way that they want to do them, which is the coolest thing about art. You get to decide. That's the choices you get to make, and that's what makes it art. Is that you, as the person who created whatever it is, you made the choices. and people say, oh well, what is free will? What is that? Do you really actually have free will, or is it just predetermined? And it's like, well, I do have free will because I draw things. I don't just draw things because somebody gave me the idea of drawing them. I draw things because I decided I wanted to draw it, and I made it, and I can change whatever color I want based on whatever I've seen in reality, my reality, not even everyone else's reality, because we all see differently. So yeah, there is free will if you choose to exercise it. And creating things is definitely an to me is an exercise in free will. I'm sure there's plenty of people that could try to argue this point, but in the end, you can tell me that it's whatever you want all day long, and then I'm going to paint it whatever color I want. And that's where my free will comes in. I usually like to make things stay close to reality, but like I said, if I want, I could just decide, instead of painting all my walls wooden and stone and bone colors, I could decide to paint it, my wood is now pink wood, and my, or blue wood, whatever I want, whatever you want. So that's the cool thing about art. It's an exercise in free will, and you should participate in it. Everyone out there, do that thing. Go out there, make something, even if it's just doodles. Damn it, doodling is art too. I swear to God. Even if you just consider it practice art, it's still art. You still made something, right? Anyway, be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Be good to the people you don't know. We definitely need some good out there in the world. They've been acting crazy. Dragging elderly people out of their homes in their robe and boxer shorts is pretty fucking weird. And pretty sinister, honestly. Let's see, McBeardsly. Yeah, I keep my stuff realistic and magical because D&D. Yeah. You can have a mad wizard in their lair. Yeah, a lot of times it makes sense. You want other people to be able to interpret stuff, but yeah. You could always go Dolly-esque too and just make everything look melty. Who gives a shit? It's the great thing about life. Make choices. But yeah, usually if I'm making stuff for other people to play in, I want it to look like a certain representation of reality. So that way they can understand what it is. But every now and again, if I make something for me, sometimes I draw some really weird, wild stuff. Doodles of strange gods that no one understands but me. Yeah. Reality's so cool. Hope you guys have a great day. I might be back tomorrow. Depends if I'm waiting on some tools, or not tools, some materials to come in. I found the tools. Materials come in so I can go finish doing all this stuff up at Christian's work site, and then that'll be done. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. But anyway, you guys be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Good people I don't know. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Oh yeah. That's right. Prepare for stormy weather if you live in most of the country. We got. Looks like we got a lot of storms and cold stuff coming through the U.S. So good luck with all that. Y'all be good.